From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased. Joining me from the US, Colin McIntosh. He's the founder of Sheets Giggles. Uh, I would say Colin has a very rich journey when it comes to starting businesses, finding first customers, fundraising, and a lot of, you know, interesting topics. I would say that every founder probably think about it when they decide to start their companies. Colin, the way I love to do, when I do the introduction, I don't speak much about my guests, so I keep it to them. Tell us a little more about you, your journey, and what you're currently up to, and then probably we can take the conversation from there.
So I appreciate you having me on and talking to me. I am the founder, best known, I think, as the founder of a company called Sheets Giggles. Started that company 8 years ago. We make sustainable eucalyptus bed sheets, mattresses, pillows, and we've been doing that for the better part of a decade now. We've been on Good Morning America and a bunch of other national TV programs and shipped a few 100,000 units to hundreds of thousands of people, mostly in America. We're funny thing about the bedding industry is that every country has different size beds. So it's hard to have like an international bedding company. And my claim to fame with Sheets and Giggles, I think, is that we went from shipping our first box in October 2018 to our first $1 million sales month in November 2020. So about 2 years, which was crazy. And there's a lot of yada, yada, yada in there in terms of, what we did, all the work, we raised some money, all these different pieces of it. Also a pandemic in the middle of that time frame, really insane. And it's been a really interesting 7 or 8 years as a founder to have started my company when I was a 27-year-old kid in 2017, which feels like the before time. And then now with, in the middle of building my company, my first business, COVID, that I cross country moved with my wife. I've started other projects. And it's been really, really fascinating journey for me to kind of zoom out and see from the outside.
Right. It is a fascinating journey. So when you started it, Colin, you raised an Indiegogo campaign, right? And before even you had the product, like what are like some of the key lessons maybe you can share with, probably entrepreneurs, founders who like usually follow this path? Anything, maybe you warn them about, or maybe things that they should know before going on such journey? Because it's not always easy to build something and then fundraise to it. So sometimes you need to do the opposite. So what you can tell us about this?
I actually think it's a lot easier to sell something and then build it, because if you sell something, then before you like selling something costs very little money. Like, yes, there's some advertising costs and videography and photography, and there's probably thousands of dollars of costs. But building something is like hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And so I actually think that it's a lot easier, safer, smarter, and a better path to success if you go out and you can write the copy, do the photography, make a video, promise people how amazing it is, do a demo, show them the product, before manufacturing 10,000 units, right? And then that page will be the same, whether or not you have inventory, that website will be the same. And the value propositions, the pricing and the conversion, that'll all be the same. And maybe be a little lower because people have to wait in order to get the product. So they're like an artificial cap on conversion. But really, you're telling yourself whether or not the market supports your idea and thinks it's interesting and wants to back it. So it's a really good stress test to decide whether or not you should even move forward with a product idea. And so I recommend that every entrepreneur, every founder starts by selling and then goes into producing. That's kind of the method that I really like. And so, yeah, we raised $284,000 on an Indiegogo pre-order campaign. I think that was like 2,000 pre-orders. And we did that. That was actually the largest Indiegogo campaign ever for our category at the time in 2018. And we shipped our first box 6 months after that. That gave me the seed funding to start the company. And then, I'm happy to get into the tactics of like how you actually do a successful
Yeah.
crowdfunding campaign, because I think is more interesting than just like the philosophy around it. So if you want to get into that, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I will come to the fundraising later, Colin. Now, also, when I was preparing, is it looks to me that there was an inflection point that unlocked scale for you, like taking the business from certain revenue, and of course, I'm sure like it took a lot of effort, blood, sweat, and tears until it reached there. But every business has what we call it the inflection point, like maybe a pivotal point where things started to change. Anything you can share about that? Like what went well when you were scaling the business, I would say.
It's really hard to identify like one inflection point. Our first three Q1s, whether it's 2019, 2020, 2021, I think went like 200,000, 700,000, and then like 2.2 million. So like that was, I think obviously like 2020 was the year that we really started to unlock growth. But everyone always asked me if it was because of the pandemic, and I'm like, not really, because we had incredible supply chain problems where like we couldn't get inventory, we lost out on a lot of sales, so we really couldn't capitalize on some of the pent up demand for COVID. It was more of that like natural growth rate. We were, 2 to 4xing year over year at that point. I think that we, after like 3 years in a row, like 4x growth, we hit the Inc. 5,000. I think we were number 309 on the Inc. 5,000 in 2022. So those years were, but I think there was really no single point that stands out in my mind. The one that maybe I could, if I had to pick like an inflection point, it was kind of because of COVID. So all my friends in 2020 were doing all these really cool things to help Colorado with COVID. They were doing like tracking, artificial intelligence tracking of like the disease. They were, trying to help the governor like do different things with different, communications with citizens. And here I am just selling bed sheets, and I'm in the startup community, but I don't really have like a technology or something. But the one thing that we did that none of my friends did, but their startups, is we made money. And so, I said, well, let's just donate 20% of our revenue for 30 days. I hate all the celebrities who are like, we're donating 1% of our profits for 20 days to COVID. Really, it's like all that profit's going to get zeroed out, and 1% of profit is embarrassing. So we donated 20% of revenue for 30 days, ended up being at that point, $40,000 that we donated. And we donated that to Colorado's emergency COVID relief in, I think, April 2020. And I remember I got a phone call from the governor's office, and they were like, hey, did you make a typo? Because they were like, we got $50,000 from the football team. We got, $50,000 from the largest telecommunications provider in the state. And we got $40,000 from Sheets and Giggles. Like, is that? And it was so funny the way they called and asked about it. And I was like, yeah, we made a pledge, and I followed through on the pledge. And that ended up through the PR channels of like the governor's office and stuff, making its way to Amazon. Amazon, as one of my partners in the business, obviously we're a small business seller on Amazon. they reached out and they said, hey, we, actually write a story about this and talk about this. So they named us as one of 6 businesses helping during the pandemic. I think that was like June 2020. And then yada, yada, yada. In October, I got a phone call from Good Morning America, and they were like, we'd love to interview you as our small business spotlight for Black Friday 2020. And that was all because of the donations made. And that earned media on Good Morning America, I think was like, worth like $600,000-700,000 in media estimates when I looked it up. And so that would be like, to me, is like the big inflection point for the company of like getting the brand out there. And then in 2021, I began sponsoring a podcast that I've been listening to for 20 years. And that was really fun because I know the audience so well. It's a big audience, like millions of listeners. And so that was another major inflection point in 2021 where I was able to write advertisements for a show that I knew like the back of my hand. And those ads performed so well. There were days on the show. There was one day on the show where I know we did over $100,000 in sales just from the show's audience. And so those were really the big 2 things that stood out to me when I think back.
Great. And, I'm happy you mentioned this, Colin, because, I wanted to ask you, actually, my next question was around, building the brand and, doing my little search. I've seen like, you build, a kind of cult following through humor, authenticity, right? So I don't like to, mention frameworks or playbooks, but I mean, what worked well for you in addition to what you mentioned as, you know, building a brand voice and, establishing the audience connection. And I think this, probably would work with, you know, majority of the entrepreneurs, I would say.
Well, humor is really hard. And because humor is writing and writing is really hard. I find it funny that human beings invented an AI to write for them because writing is so damn hard. Good. But I think that the lesson is brand needs to be true to its founder's personality. The founder is going to be driving most of the brand, voice, content, copy, especially in the early days. And so there are 12 brand archetypes, right? There's sage, there's the everyman, there's the inventor, the magician, hero, the caregiver, the romantic, explorer, and we are a jester. And we're kind of our secondary brand archetype is like kind of an outlaw or a rebel. And then we're also a bit of a hero. But I know that we're a jester, and that's because I know who I am. And that's the way that I go about life. I joke about most things. I don't take it seriously. I really say on the bright side. And so, I knew that was going to have to be a brand that I built. It was have to be comedy. Because if it was anything else, if I tried to be serious, about like, these are the best bed sheets you'll ever try. And here's why, 12 reasons why. I couldn't do it. Like, it would be so boring. And I specifically picked a category in bedding and sleep that I found to be like kind of a blank canvas for doing something funny and different, because who's funny in the bedding category? Like maybe Purple, right? Like Purple they had some good ads. But like, other than that, like it was all like, oh, it's the finest cotton you'll ever have. And I'd go on the subway in New York and like Brooklyn and Bowen Branch and stuff would have these images of like women doing like acro yoga in bed with boyfriends, or like French press coffee, like on the edge of the bed. And then you're like, nobody lives like this. Nobody's bedroom looks like this. So I wanted to do, dogs in bed and wine in bed and pizza and movies and video games out. Like, somebody in a small apartment where their bed is their couch, their workstation, like, and so that was something that like we did day one. We're really knew who we were speaking to, we knew the voice that we wanted to do. And I'd recommend to every founder to do a brand identity map before you get started. And this is kind of a broader, like, do all the things that don't cost any money. So a business model, a financial model, a brand identity map, start a website, and you can do all of that for like $50. And that is going to kind of make your company feel more real and put guardrails around it and actually help you visualize like, okay, here's the financial model, here's the brand identity map, here's the business model. And now I have a real website. And then you can go from there. But the brand identity map, there's a great one. If you Google brand identity map Techstars, there's a really, really good one that's available for free on their website. One page. Don't pay an agency to do a 20 deck brand identity map for you. It's a nightmare.
Keep it simple. Exactly.
Super simple. I remember, sorry, quick aside.
Yeah,
I
please.
remember one time I worked this agency at my old company who they did a brand identity map for the company. And I'll never forget, they were like, your ideal customer is Sarah. She's 24 years old. She lives in New York. She still drinks caipirinhas from her semester abroad in Brazil. She has a boyfriend, but it's not that serious. And I was like, I'm sorry, is this helpful for anyone here? And I was like, not the founder I was just like 25-year-old brass idiot. And I was just like, this is insane. I'm like, we're paying these people to like write a fiction, like a novel for us. Like, no, so like for me, brand identity maps need to be like very actionable. Like you need to have like your core features, your core benefits, your limbic hot buttons, your logical arguments, your emotional reasoning, like your demographics that you're going after, your brand archetypes. There's so many companies will do this like persona nonsense and like that. And then eventually like 2-3 years later, they're like, persona has evolved, has changed, has been like, oh my God, just have a brand identity and like, and have stick to it, like, and those guardrails will be really helpful for your team because I could tell my customer care team, I could tell my marketing team, I could tell my product team, hey, look, we're sweet, but we're never saccharine. We're funny, but we're never corny. We're sarcastic, but we're never caustic. We're smart, but we're never try hard. And like that is kind of the way that you can shape a brand.
Talking about financials, like what kind of lessons also maybe or things in your opinion maybe other founders they miss when it comes to pricing psychology? Because I hear it a lot, and whether it's in tech or outside of the tech industry, where they have this doubt how much we should charge for this, and they have this fear, like is it like overpriced, underpriced? uh, what do you think usually founders miss when they decide on their pricing um, strategy?
So when I started the company, I had to do the old pricing strategy, which is, you look at the cost that makes you to produce something. You look at your competitors' cost and you do this, and then you plug something into your financial model and you see if it works. And then you try to charge people it. And if they say yes, then great. And if not, you try to lower your price to see what conversion does. And, that sort of now founders can use a tool that I really recommend. I love a company called Intelligems. So like intelligence, but GEMS at the end, Intelligems. And they are the most robust price testing software. Not to turn this into an ad for them, but like, you can do A, B, C, D, E price testing. You never show a different price to the same person. You can do mobile versus desktop, crossouts versus codes, free shipping testing. You can test by SKU, by color. So now there are tools that are like, make this so much easier to like really dial in what your maximum price can be and like find out your true price elasticity and where you sit on that curve. But like there's a lesson here, which is like most founders will underprice their product because they're too close to it. They see how it's made. And they understand all the warts and all the really defects and the problems and like all the different things that went. And so I always recommend starting high and then moving lower if you have to over time. There's nothing wrong with going higher over time. A lot of people are skittish about that. They're like, oh, like, the founders need to realize that 90% of the people who ever will come to their website over the course of time will probably be new eyeballs. And so changing your pricing is not really that impactful to your existing customer. And if anyone brings it up, hey, you lowered your price, I paid a higher price, just have a customer care response ready to go that says, you're absolutely right. Like, thanks for notifying. Here's a $10 gift card to Amazon, as an apology for, changing our prices. And so something really simple like that goes a long way. But there's a bunch of ways of pricing theory. There's obviously the COGS, like I mentioned earlier. There's like more of the finger to the wind. There's the robust price testing, the competitor analysis. But really, whatever people are willing to pay for something, that's the price. And so I recommend people continue to raise their price until conversion falls off a cliff, because that extra margin will be very helpful as you build your company.
Right. Now let's go back to fundraising and crowdfunding. So in addition to the campaign, you've raised 5 million in VC money. You know, starting with the crowdfunding, of course. Like, how did you manage, Colin, investor expectations? And this is something also I think some founders, especially first-time founders, might not have the experience. Um, they don't know like what are the things they should do while doing the fundraising. But for you also, you needed to keep your community engaged as well, so you had the VCs plus the community which you fundraise from. So tell us about this balance, and for first time founders, setting up the expectations with investors.
It's really hard. You have to understand what drives investors. So if you're going to speak to a venture capitalist versus an angel investor, these are very different people, right? A venture capitalist has a fund of money that they're trying to get a return on. They raised money from other people. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their GPs and their LPs who have put money into the fund. And so you really need to understand, like, hey, it's your role. Like, what are you guys trying to do with the fund? Like, are you close to the end of the fund? Are you at the beginning of deploying capital? Like, what's your time horizon for a return on investment here? Is it 3 years, 7 years, 1 year? And so you really need to like understand what drives the people that you're talking to. Whereas an angel investor might say that, hey, I'm just happy to support cool companies, and like I just want to help out the local community. And if I get a 20% return, that's great, like, and they're happy, or if I get my money back or whatever. So there's a lot of difference between investors and what they're looking for and how you can speak to them. So that's kind of step number one. You can usually do that research ahead of time. So that way you're walking into the meeting and you're speaking their language without having to necessarily ask them, but it's always okay to ask them if you don't know. And then I would say the number one reason why people invest is, I'm going to put this without sounding like an asshole. People don't necessarily invest because they think it will be a great return. And I've noticed as I've invested in companies as an angel investor, people invest in companies when they fear that they're going to miss out on a deal. And human beings are, and look, disciplined investors won't do that. Disciplined investors have like their core metrics and things they look for, and they have a thesis and the whole nine, right? And so I'm talking about like maybe like 80% of investors, like the broad pool of people, just human beings and how they act. And there are always people who are, looking for more of like the metrics and numbers. So I always tell founders, like, have your traction like buttoned up and ready to go. Your sales numbers, your revenue, your pre-order list, your people on the wait list, your alpha users, your NPS score, your retention rate, your lifetime value. You need to know these numbers front and back. And if any investor asks in a meeting, hey, what's your average lifetime value? And you're not able as the founder to like rattle that off like immediately, like what's your cost of acquisition? You need to tell them down to the penny what your CAC is, right? And if you can't come up with these numbers, you need to know your revenue per month, your quarters that are up. They won't invest in you if you say, oh, 1 second, let me look that up. As the founder, you need to like live and breathe these numbers. So what I did is every day I would, actually really crazy. Before I had a CFO, I had my own spreadsheets. for like 2 years, and I would go into the spreadsheet and I would update every single day the amount of money we spent on marketing, the amount of new customers we got. I'd build my own P&L really. And so every single day I was looking at the numbers and I knew front and back exactly what we were doing down to the penny. And I could tell you the sales that we had on Wednesday last week, tell you the sales we had this month so far, with all those different things, growth rate, percentage growth. And so I think investors really liked me because I never hesitated for a second when answering a question. I always knew everyone. But really that fear of missing out, that FOMO, I think is like a lot of people, they invest in companies because they want to tell other people that they invested in that company.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, it's pretty basic, but like if you can lead, and really what I'm talking about here is a central tenet pitching an audience is, and I've won pitch competitions. I've won Denver Startup Week. I've won a few different pitch competitions. I teach how to pitch for startups and accelerators and universities. One of the core things is understand the feeling that you want to leave your audience with. And the feeling that I always wanted to leave people with is, if I don't invest in this guy, I'm going to feel really stupid in a few years. And that was, I knew that was kind of the thing I wanted to leave them with. And also this guy's funny. Like that's also what I wanted them to leave. So I always made jokes. I always very light in the meeting, like, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, if you leave it's the George Costanza rule, right? If you're a Seinfeld fan, always leave them wanting more. And if you leave the room and they want more, like you left in a good place. Don't give them everything. Don't go on, make sure that you have a hard stop, stuff like that.
Out of curiosity, Colin, like how at that time, was the reaction from the investors knowing that, you crowdfunded before? Like, did they have like different term sheets? Was it like more about like, yeah, we know like maybe you have done this with the community, but now we have to do like what we think is right?
No,
Was
so
the
my crowdfunding was actually pre-orders, not equity. So I did not
okay.
do crowdfunding. So I did pre-orders. I did like 2,000 pre-orders.
So this
Then
was your validation, basically.
that was my validation, exactly. So the only impact that had on fundraising was tremendously positive, because I could tell
Mm.
investors a story of, hey, I put 10 grand into this thing, and I spent $3,000 on a video. I spent 1,000 getting the website set up, and then I spent 5,000 on ads, and we did our first, $100,000 of sales in a week. And when you can tell somebody that you did $100,000 of sales in a week as a new brand, like especially in the late 2010s, like when D2C was like hot and everybody was looking for like the next big brand, people really paid attention. And so that was that was the traction. That was like the entry level conversation. Who's going to fund a company that's based off a pun, Sheets and Giggles, right? Like who's gonna give me money for my weird bed sheets idea? Like, nobody. Like that. Like it's a crazy idea. But I can go to them and I can say, hey, I just launched on Indiegogo yesterday and we did $45,000 on day one with no advertising, just off of our email list. I think that everyone kind of immediately, like, you don't have to understand direct to consumer or marketing or branding. Investors speak the language of money. And so no matter what your idea is, if you can tell them that it's making money, they will talk to you and listen to you.
I'm glad you brought the discussion to this point, Colin. Now, uh, a lot changed since pretty much maybe before COVID. As you said, like it's like now we say pre-COVID, post-COVID. Uh, Trends changed. As you said, DTC was hot. Now everyone talks about AI. Everyone is obsessed with data. Uh, if you, or maybe let's say you and me were advising or like maybe mentoring a founder today to go and raise his or her seed round, right? But they are into the consumer business, maybe they are a green tech founders. What do you think they should be doing today, knowing the current needs from investors in the age of AI and data?
It's a really hard question. So investors keep moving the goalpost as fast as they can. Most think because they want to make like pithy LinkedIn posts about how like $1 million ARR isn't impressive anymore. Like, like everybody wants to go viral. You know? But I think that like the number one thing I would tell a founder, is that it's the same core driving factors. Like, are you getting traction? Do you have good user numbers? What are your user metrics? Like, are people excited to use your product? Like, do you get good reviews? And like, are you growing? Do you have good word of mouth? Like, investors want to see organic user growth. They want to see, month over month growth in users. They want to see, great user metrics on the website. Are people engaged? Are they staying engaged? Are they using the app? Is the attention rate high? The engagement rate high? So like, I think that most of these metrics are still pretty similar. The main difference is like, you're not, when I pitched Sheets and Giggles, I remember I told people like, hey, I don't think this is a home run. I think this is like a double. And I would tell people like, I think this is like a good company that can make money, that is making money, that, can be a pretty big brand. I don't know if it's going to be, $1 billion company or brand or something like that. And I was pretty honest with my investors. I think that that's one of the reasons why a lot of my investors invested in the business, because they felt like I was being very like genuine and open with them about what I thought the business could do. A lot of founders go into the room and they're like, we're going to do 3 million year one, then we're going to do 30 million year two, then we're going to do 100 million year three. And then, we're going to take on the $15 billion market in year four. And that like, and they keep having these like concentric circle rings of market that like, and it's just like, it just shows like an irrational exuberance and a lack of understanding of like what it actually takes to build a big business. That you just kind of go in there and say that we're just going to J Crew hockey stick in 2 years. And so I think that that's understanding that like investors are looking for higher returns, because I mean, interest rate environment changed in 2022, 2023 so much that, 15% IRR is not the norm anymore for what venture capitalists need. They need like a 25% IRR, in order to provide compelling returns to people who are putting money at the fund. And, if you're going in there and you're saying like, hey, like I have a $20 million idea or something like that, it's just not interesting to venture capitalists anymore. Like it's so there, but you need to be both at once. This is the balancing act. You need to be at once very rational about what your prospects are and what your growth rate will be, and be able to defend that financial line. And you need, if you're going to raise money from venture right now, like you need a big idea and a big market that is going to really like not necessarily grow like rapidly exponentially, but like has legitimate potential for 9 figures of revenue or more, like in, a 5-7 year period. Because investors are looking for much higher returns than they were a few years ago. I mean, when interest rates were near zero, you could give people a 10 to 15% IRR and look pretty good. But, now it's the case anymore.
Right. And, I give hint to some founders sometimes where I tell them back maybe to the pricing, discussion that we had. So just let's say you got to sell something, whether it's software, physical product, doesn't matter, right? So just put a number and like just calculate how much you can grow. Really, you can scale it, right? And think from an investor perspective, like put yourself in their shoes for a moment and see like, how much you can double that, triple that, like 10x, 100x, right?
People
And
always ask me, they're like, can you do 10x this? And I'm like, I got to build a product. So it's a little, like I'm already growing 4x year over year. Can I grow 40x year over year? Like, probably not, but, I always refuse to like lie to investors. That's an interesting thing is like, a lot of founders, they feel like they should just say whatever the investor wants to hear. And
Right.
I've had investors tell me in the room, hey, we want to invest. Just tell us how this is going to go to
Mm,
$100 million within, 5 years. And I would sit there and I'd be like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't think that there's a viable path for me to do that with the fact that I'm doing this product and this specific brand and mix. I think I can do, 20 to $50 million in that period of time, like in revenue. And I think that that's great. But if you don't think that that's interesting, then I'm not going to lie to you. It's really weird. Like, it's almost like they want to be, they want to hear a story. You know what I mean? Like, they want to hear like it, but at the same time, like if you spin a yarn, then they're gonna, roll their eyes and they won't meet with you again. So it is a balancing act. Like, founders really do have to understand, like, you know, and I've always erred on the side of like being extremely honest and like,
yeah,
just telling
100%.
people like, hey, here's what it is, here's what it looks like. And I think that people really respect that. I wouldn't want to go off into the other direction of more like a fantastical, over exuberant founder. But it is a balancing act of like, you need to excite them, but make sure that it's rational and defensible and makes sense.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned this exercise, Colin, it's not like to do any deception for the
Yeah,
investors.
yeah.
Is like me as a founder, do I believe I have big market and a potential? Because I'm not here to defend or like offend anyone here, but I've seen on both sides people asking wrong questions, answering as you mentioned in a way, yeah, like we gotta like grow this business 100x, 1000x, which is we know. I say like everything has kind of quote unquote law of physics, right? So you can't break the limits sometimes. So if you're, how much market share you can take, it depends on which, of course, like geography you're operating as well. You want to say something
I
like
also think that this is a moment for people to build bootstrap companies. Like, I really do. I think that this is a
that?
good moment in time to be more disciplined about, revenue, profit, growing slow. I think that this era, the last 2 or 3 years, and then probably looking into the future a few years, I think it's going to create a lot of really good businesses because when money is tight, when times are tough, or the economy is bad, um, there's a lot more founders that are forced to grow organically, slowly, methodically, ruthlessly. Um, and then that, in 5 or 7 or 10 years, when the money's flowing again and when times are good again, it'll be like MailChimp or, like some, and people who raise tons of money yourself for huge numbers because they've never taken a single dime of equity financing. And I think that that's a really cool place for us to like be in, although it is really hard, for founders that, raising money is a bit of an easy one to go out and start getting some scale. But I think that it will build better businesses. I think that people, should be very like aware and cognizant of like, should I raise money? Is this a venture capital backed idea? Is this a scalable idea? And I think that goes back to the goal of why you're starting it. Like, are you
Right.
starting a company to make billions of dollars? Are you starting a company because you want to work for yourself?
Yeah.
Or are you starting a company because you want to help people? And those are not necessarily mutually exclusive goals, um, but they are different. And so, you can help people without making money. You can make money without working for yourself, and you can work for yourself, without helping people. And so like that, like, but I try to do those are my three goals, like, and it kind of have like a Venn diagram of them.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like, I think the founders need to be honest with themselves. Like, what would make me happy? And sorry, that's a deeper question. Like, pro tip to any founder out there, nothing will make you happy. The only thing that will make you happy is right here. And it comes from right here. And you have to wake up every day and choose to be happy. There is no like external force that will switch on happiness for you. There's no number, there's no crowd, there's no accolade. There's no I love you, dad. Like nothing will make you like happy until you just decide one day to wake up and your brain's capable of it in the future. Your brain is capable of it right now, and you don't have to wait for it. And so that's like a side note of like, your business is not going to make you happy. So like, don't do it because you're seeking happiness. I always think the best businesses are the ones that are in service of others. And, I
Mhm.
think that's why we're put on earth is for the service of others. And so you can do that without raising money. You can do that without growing a big business. And I know a lot of people with lifestyle businesses, $10 million a year, $20 million a year, um, that are just the happiest, most successful people I know. And and I think that that's something that we undervalue because venture capital has really trained entrepreneurs to go raise money and then go brag about raising money, on LinkedIn and TechCrunch and stuff.
Right. So this is a question. I'm involved in a training program where it's not training. I would call it like apprenticeship program. And I ask to be entrepreneurs, like the same question you just asked, like why you're doing this, like what's your purpose? And they ask me sometimes, to your point, yeah, like I want to make money, and then I'm looking for investors, and then I say, okay, fine, like why you need this money? Are you going to, do you want just to have a comfortable life? Probably, maybe you have a number in your mind that, okay, if I have this income, I will be happy, but I want to be working for myself. And they asked me, is that wrong? I said, no, it's not wrong. If this is your purpose in life, that's fine. I can't force you to do something else. But when, you know, if you're, I call it like a mission bigger than yourself, or a vision bigger than yourself, then yeah, probably you would need some support down the road. And this is where you might, you know, but I'm with you, Colin. Like I push people to bootstrap at the beginning. At least they start to have skin in the game. They start to figure out few things by themselves, because if you try to immediately go and fundraise, it's hard first. And we know, maybe this also, Colin. Like investors would give you the different kind of look. Like, right. So you need to build some credibility.
You can spend a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to raise money and never get a single dime. And all that
It's
time
not
and energy
easy.
could be spent on building a business and building a book of clients and building customers. I think that yeah, to go back to what you were just saying, like there are so many founders. I fell into this trap when I was 28, 29, 30, who think that if I can just get to X, I would be happy. And it doesn't matter what X is. X for some people is $5 million. For some people, it's $50 million, $100 million. For some people, there's never a number, right? Um, but there's so many people out there that are like, I can just get to here. But as soon as you get to there, they have a new goal. They've moved the goalpost. They've forgotten what their old goal was. They never stop to smell the roses. And they're never happy and they're never satisfied. And so, for me, I look for fulfillment, both within the business, but very much outside the business. So I try to have fulfillment with my wife, my family, my community. We do trash cleanups at the park every weekend, here in Miami. And, we try to, be the change that we want to see in the world. And it's been a wonderful life. Like I do a lot of camping. I go out and I do a lot of hiking and traveling. Um, and there's a big part of me that wants to like go live abroad and do different things like that. But I love my family. I got a niece and nephew. Uh, all this stuff is important to remember. Like, we're not put on earth to like make money. Money doesn't exist. And like, it's interesting. You read about history and you realize like how much of history is driven by money, and it's really it's kind of sad. But it is what it is. And so I try to make sure that like I'm not forgetting what it means to be a human, and why we're here.
Right. Final thing I want to ask you, Colin, is about your Techstar experience. So you went on
Mm,
Techstars Boulder in 2019, I think. So how
yeah.
this shaped, your mindset, and how it also affected your network. And I can see also you became a mentor there. So tell us a bit more about this experience.
So when I was 25, I had been fired or let go from three different jobs. My first three of my four first jobs, and different reasons for sure. And most founders are bad employees. Uh, and so my friend Jackie had started a company that I had written the business plan for actually when I was 23 at my kitchen table in Connecticut. Um, and she said that, hey, we got into Techstars. She called me one day. I was living in Seattle. And I knew what it was because I had done tech recruiting. At one of my jobs, I was a recruiter. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Techstars is amazing. And she was like, do you want to come be on our founding team? And uh, she said, I'll pay you $1,600 a month before tax. And you can come down and you have 3 months of job security. After that, I don't know if I can pay you anymore. And so I drove 20 hours down from Seattle to Denver. I slept on her couch, got paid minimum wage basically. And I busted my ass so hard in summer 2015. And that was the year that really changed my life. I learned so much about starting a company, building a brand, like consumer marketing. I had mentors that were just the best people that I could possibly have in business development and marketing and sales. Um, we ended up raising $3 million from wonderful people. We hired like 20 people in downtown Denver, had an office. I moved to Denver full time in 2016. And then unfortunately, we all got laid off at 1 p.m. on a Monday in September 2017. And that was pretty emotional. That was really tough because I had poured, my couple of years, 2 years of my life into that company in my mid-20s. I remember telling my friends, like, I'm going to start a bed sheet company. So I incorporated Sheets Giggles 3 weeks after that. And I ended up doing Techstars in 2019 and with Sheets and Giggles as a founder. And that was so special to like go through the program 4 years later, not as an employee or as a secondary team member, but actually as founder and CEO, bring my own team into the program and, do our own scrappy, bad boulder apartments that the company was paying for. And in the middle of the winter, ice cold, brought my dog to the office every day. And, slept at the office sometimes. So for people that don't know, Techstars is an accelerator. They give you $100,000 in a room with 10 other companies. And they tell you to work your ass off for 13 weeks, 90 days. And then you get on stage at demo day and you pitch in front of a crowd. And the thing that always stands out for me is that in 2015, as a 25-year-old that had had no success so far in my career outside of recruiting, interestingly, I was so enamored with the pitches they showed, the demo day pitches they showed us. I was like on day one, they were like, this is what you guys are going to do to the founders. I was, but like my friend Jackie was, and she killed it. And I was watching the pitches for like SendGrid and other amazing companies. And I was like, oh, how cool would it be to be like a founder pitch shown to new Techstars classes as an example of how to pitch. And then in 2019, I got to do my own pitch and I brought the house down in the Boulder Theater in Colorado. I mean, I had cracking up and falling over in their seats. You can look on at YouTube if you search for Techstars and see my pitch. And then that pitch is now what Techstars shows to programs all over the world. 6 years later, for the last 5 years, they've shown people, and I get Techstars founders all the time who reach out to me on LinkedIn. They're like, hey, I just got into the program. I just watched your pitch. I'm in the Chicago program or the Atlanta program or the Miami program. And starting in 2022, I actually began teaching the Boulder and the Miami program companies how. And so I do the first pitch practice and I do the last pitch practice before demo day. And it's really a gift to be able to give back and be a mentor to the program in my life. And I want to back Stars. They're a phenomenal program, and I highly recommend them for any entrepreneur that wants support and mentorship. But yeah, that to me is like a fun full circle thing. I actually met this guy down here in South Florida. My wife and I just moved to Miami this year to be closer to my family. Um, after 10 wonderful years in Colorado. And I met this guy at this bar down here, and we're just talking, and we're talking about our startups and our companies. And he's like, yeah, we're at like, $400,000 or $500,000 revenue. Like I'm considering raising. And I was like, oh, have you thought about doing Techstars? Like I can introduce you to people. And he goes, oh no, I did Techstars in 2023. And I was like, oh no way. And wait, are you cheating both guy? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, they showed us your pitch, like in the class. He's like, I can't believe, fun stuff like that is like, that's really fun for me to be a part of the community and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I would highly recommend it to any founder. I think it's life changing.
Fantastic. By the way, Techstar, they exist in, multiple places outside of the US also as well.
So many countries have a
Yeah.
Techstars program.
Yeah. So if you're listening or watching us from somewhere, go search for your local Techstar. So probably you will find. By the way, I watched you know, this is why excited me to talk more to you, Colin, because I watched the video before a couple of weeks ago because we're supposed to record before. I'm transparent with my audience. So guys, like I'm gonna put the link in the show notes. You need no, but seriously, like
It's fun. It's a fun pitch. That was
fun.
my magnum opus of pitching. Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
best.
but I think they will learn a lot. Like, and it doesn't matter. I mean, what's your startup is about. It's like, there's a complete thing. We call it art of pitching, and you need to
The rhythm.
call it.
It's rhythmic. Like so I believe, by the way, I appreciate that. I'm glad that you liked it. There's a rhythm to speaking, singing, dancing, comedy, cooking is rhythmic. Storytelling, writing, like
Right.
things that humans have done for hundreds of thousands of years around a campfire are like now part of us evolutionarily. Like there's a rhythm. And I think that there is a rhythm to speaking, to being in front of a crowd, to being an orator. And so not everybody can do it like naturally. Like some people are very uncomfortable being in front of a crowd. They get really tensed up and stuff. But there are like a dozen or so rules to a good pitch. And what I'll tell people is cheat sheet is you got to make them lean in within the first 10 to 20 seconds. And if you don't make them lean in and put their phones away, they are just not going to listen to you. And the best way to do that is not describing the problem, the story, the solution, the people, that is all nonsense. No one cares about your problem. No one knows about your problem. The number one way to make them lean in is to tell them how much fucking money you're making within 10 to 20 seconds, or tell them how many users you have or some eye-popping number, because they may not understand anything about your company, but a big number is like, we're squirrels. So like big number, humans are like, whoa, big number. Like, and so do something like that.
Right. Finally, Colin, where people can get in touch.
I'm pretty private overall, honestly. I'm not, but you can email me. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest. Just search. Yeah. Colin McIntosh, Sheets and Giggles. I'm pretty easy to find. I just don't tweet. I don't post on LinkedIn. I try to spend my life. I'm already on my phone way too much, so I try to be, a little bit private.
No, that's completely understandable, Colin. But yeah, just for people, if they want, maybe just have a look on your LinkedIn profile.
Easiest. Yeah.
So I gotta put the LinkedIn profile. Colin, I really enjoyed the discussion. It's fun always for me to talk to not only founder, I would say, or entrepreneurs, but I would call it, it's like not attitude. It's like your character, your personality. You have like a very down to earth. You know what you're doing. You want to leave an impact, positive impact, of course, in the world and on people. And I, get too much, little bit, connected to people like yourself, Colin, who are
No, that's
trying
not.
to.
That's really kind of you. Man, I try to tell founders and other people and anyone who will listen that um it's gonna get a little metaphysical at the end here. Like our atoms come from rivers and oceans and clouds and sand and rocks and trees and animals. And they're in this combination for
Right,
80 years if we're lucky, right? And it's a hard existence to be a human. I mean, to be alive and to be conscious is its own form of suffering. But at the same time, it's such a fleeting like moment in time where you get to be this combination of atoms that like, why are you going to spend this time doing anything other than like, being maximum human and like having a great time and helping other people? And that's
right.
really the big insight that I've had is like, life is so hard and no one asked to be born, and no one asked to be this combination of atoms.
True.
They just are. You're when you're pregnant, you gather them from everywhere, and then you put them together and you assemble, and here's the. um, but like I feel like my number one guiding thing is like I want to be grateful for the help that I can give other
Absolutely.
people get through life. And then after that, we all go back to being rivers, rocks, trees, clouds, and like I think that's going to be a beautiful existence too. Like I look forward to being a river again. I really, really do. Can't wait.
Yeah, I love this. It's being grounded, and being grateful, as you said, Colin. Like, usually I don't like to talk much, and take from my guests, but again, I like just add something about, the purpose, about, being grateful. So people reach out to me, and they see, hey, like, how much money are you making from the podcast? And I said, guys, you're not getting the point.
Oh,
It's not about, the transaction. And I said, like, it's been a while when I stopped thinking transactional and I think purpose. Like, maybe it's not the famous podcast in the world, maybe it's not, I don't know what, but you know two things. First, I tell people always, if I have one person in the whole world who, by luck, now let's say, tune in, he listens to you, Colin, he get inspired or she get inspired. This for me is like I did my mission. I feel like this
that's
is,
you're done. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I said when I started. She said if we sell one unit, I'll be happy. Like I did
right.
one. You know what I mean? Like that's what I said. If we can make one person's life better.
Yeah, so for me,
Yeah.
it's the same exact thing. And the other thing I tell them, which is underrated in my opinion, I'm not sure. Like I didn't speak to a lot of the hosts out there. I've been guesting a couple of podcasts, but the thing is, and this is underrated, which people they don't understand. Like every time I do a new episode, I meet a new person, I learn new things, and now after almost 3 years and close to, I would say, 350 uh, interviews or more. I think
Uh,
400. Yeah. So the amount of knowledge that I have, the amount of deep connection I establish with my guests, I tell people this is priceless. You can't put a price tag next to such thing, right? So it's like a treasure. So
Man, now that I live in Miami, I love that, by the way. But now that I live in Miami, I grew up down here. So I left when I was 18 and now I'm back at 35, which is an interesting experience. I have people who, when they find out that I am the founder of a company or whatever, they will immediately ask me, how much money do you make? And they will immediately tell me how much money they make. And then people show me their bank accounts at get together. Like I'm like, dude, like go to therapy. Don't show dude, I am not your validation or what. Like go fucking like work journaling. Like go get this out of your like there's so many people like that down here. It's crazy. I'm like, and I miss Colorado.
Everywhere.
And yeah,
Everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah, for sure. But you know, and it is, I will say, like, I think that I don't have to tell you this, but like, it is a privilege to be able to, you know, start a company and work on something you're passionate about. You know, winning the everything from the geographic lottery to living in, you know, developed nations to, you know, having wonderful parents and good educations. And like, and so that's another reason that drives me to like make the world better is like, you know, I know not everybody has the same opportunity and the same ability. And so I really want to help to create more quality of opportunity. And, you know, and I really also, I feel like I would be like wasting, my life and my potential if I didn't take advantage of everything that's been given to me. And so that's another thing is like, you got the ability, you got the time, you got the risk, ability, like do something fun, go do something different. And worst case scenario, like, yeah, you can go get a job somewhere, but that's a really good worst case scenario. It's like go work at
Absolutely.
a corporation somewhere. Like that's a very lucky place to be.
100%. Well, Colin, I can't thank you enough for your time, of course, and being on the show. It's an honor, and you know, I really enjoyed the conversation with you today. And this is how I end my episode. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast, as I was saying to Colin, like maybe someone by luck, maybe it's karma, I don't know what you call it, and you tuned in, I have a small favor from you. It's just like subscribe and share it with as many people as you can. And if you are one of the people who keep coming back, listening, watching, if you're seeing this on YouTube, and you write me your feedback, you reach out, thank you very much for doing so. And thank you also for the support because, you know, the podcast in 2025 was always ranking, you know, in one of the countries in the top 200 Apple podcast charts. And this cannot happen by itself. I don't have bots that tune in. So it's human beings, you know, listening, tuning in, and you know, downloading the episodes again and again. So thank you very much for your trust. And as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.